Welcome to Indianomics. I'm Lata and we are starting with a big headline. The number of poor people in India has fallen to just 11.3% in 2022-23 from a high 29.2% in 2013-14 and from an even higher 55.34% in 2005-06. Now, this is as per a research done by NITI Aayog. The report also points out that poverty fell from by a few 17.89 percentage points from 2013-14 to 2022-23, which means a massive 24.8 crore people came out of poverty in this 9-year period. We need to, however, note 2 points. First, this is not as per the usual income measurement of poverty, but as per a multi-dimensional poverty index, which is based on data collected by the National Family Health Surveys. This survey measures people according to their access to 12 basic necessities, like, nutritious food, years of schooling, school attendance, electricity, drinking water, sanitation, housing, cooking fuel, etc. A second point we need to note is that the last National Family Health Survey was done in 2019 to 21, and hence the number of poor people for 22-23 has been extrapolated by using the pace of fall in poverty from 2015-16 to 2019-20. Using the NFHS, that's the National Family Health Survey reports of 2005-6, 14-15 and 19-20. So the NITI scholars are actually calculating that multidimensional poverty fell by 7.69% each year from 2005-6 to 2014-15, and it fell by a faster clip of 10.6%, no, not 109, 10.6% from 15-16 to 19-20. Using the same pace, NITI says that India will reach single-digit poverty levels by next year, that is 2024-25. To understand more about the key takeaways from this report and also why NITI prefers the multidimensional method of calculating poverty rather than the old income or consumption method, I have with me the author of the report, one of the authors, Dr. Ramesh Chand. We also have the CEO of NITI Aayog, Dr. BVR Subrahmanyam, and Dr. Pronab Sen, former Chief Statistician of India and former Chairman of the Statistics Commission, who knows a thing or two about these statistics. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Chand, I know it's a longer report and I have summarized it quickly. According to you, what is the key takeaway from the report?
First thing is, as you mentioned, that this report employs, I would call, innovative methodology to estimate extent of multidimensional poverty. Globally, there was a debate whether income correctly capture the incidence and state of poverty, or there should be some change in it. So if we look at the literature, we just find that income criteria has some limitations, income is not an end in itself. Income is a source to improve health of people, to improve housing, to improve nutrition, food security, standard of living, and those kind of things, which we call outcomes. So this concept of multidimensional poverty is based on the outcome which are intended to be achieved by taking people out of poverty or by increasing their income.
Fair point.
Second reason that the poverty estimate does not, income estimate does not capture a lot of things which government do to remove deprivation of people, to improve their nutrition, for their health, for their housing, for their sanitation, water supply, etc. They remain outside the metric of income. So they, if you look at those kind of things and prepare a sort of index, you make a sort of improvement over them.
Fair point. You get a more, Sorry, sir, go
Yeah,
ahead.
then this started from OPHI, Oxford Poverty and Health Institute. Now I think it is accepted by UN bodies. They are coming with the report for so many countries. In 2023 also, they came with a similar report which they prepared for India.
Okay.
For India, they used NFHS. In other country, wherever some data on a different kind of indicator which are related to welfare of household, welfare of population, child health, women health,
Yes.
nutrition, etc., etc. So I would say that now this indicator is getting more and more acceptability
Okay.
to examine condition of people, living standard, and also for intervention.
I get that. It's certainly for intervention, it definitely helps policy because you clearly know what is the country lacking in. But let me poke some holes, Dr. Subrahmanyam, if you will indulge me. See, the report itself is saying, I hope we can flash that, nutrition in 2005-06 and 2019-21, cooking fuel, sanitation. I mean, let the data come up on the screen. See, nutrition levels are still deprived for 31.5% of the population as of 2019-21. Cooking fuel not available to 43.9% of the people. Sanitation not available to 31%. Housing not available to 41%. Dr. Subrahmanyam, if this is the case, can we really claim that only 11% of the people are absolutely poor? There is a disjunction here. There is a discrepancy here, don't you think?
See, you have to look at the methodology by which this indicator is calculated. You have to be deprived in at least 1/3 of the indicators to be counted as multidimensionally poor. So you may be having a lot of things, but you may not be having a house. That doesn't alone make you, poor as per this indicator. And it's widely accepted. So the simple point is that 30% may not be having sanitation as per the survey. They may be having a lot of other things, and if that's the only thing they're lacking, they won't be counted as poor. And that's a methodology which has been designed by the UNDP, designed by the Oxford Policy and Human Development Institute. So I don't think we have a quarrel with that. And the good thing about the report is it's very honest, and it tells you if I was asked to take what are the two biggest things which we need to solve in the next couple of years to actually get rid of poverty, and on this parameter at least, I would say it's nutrition, followed by cooking fuel. If you tackle these two, you're probably over the hump. Housing, as I see it, will be reflected once the massive PMIY program is actually completed. A lot of houses are getting sanctioned, they are not yet there. There's also a methodological issue with housing. The way housing is Pakka and Kacha are calculated in the National Sample Survey, and the way they are calculated in the NFHS are quite different. Because of which these numbers are high. If you actually look at the NSSO surveys, they are much, much lower. The houses. Definition is, we're trying to resolve the definitional issues, but for comparability, we have used critical benchmarks for all the three parameters which have actually been calculated, which is NFHS 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. No, my complaint would be that therefore these three indicators is actually giving a very restrictive definition of poverty. Genuinely, there are more issues. Like, I mean, a third of the population not having nutritious food is a little, is perhaps the more right measure of poverty. Dr. Sen, what are your takeaways, sir? I mean, the three takeaways, positive or negative, from this report?
Look, the news is positive. Let's be clear on that. I think the one cannot question that, but we need to be very clear about a few things. I mean, first is perhaps a semantic point. I don't like the term multidimensional poverty index. Right? This doesn't measure poverty. What it measures is deprivations. Right? None of the indicators that have been used in this report are new in and of themselves. Right? So if you remember the old Planning Commission, I hate to bring it up, but we used to use all of these indicators as dashboards to give us an indication of where we should be focusing. Correct? So it's not as if it didn't exist earlier. The point is, nobody put it together into one index and then determine a cutoff on that. Right? My objection is to that particular process.
Okay.
So I don't think it's measuring poverty in any real sense.
Okay.
What it is certainly measuring is what are the dimensions in which the people of India are deprived
Fair
or are not deprived of.
Fair. Okay. I'll come to this poverty measurement in just a minute, sir. Take your point that it is measuring deprivation, but in any case, it's very useful for policy
Yes,
making.
it is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Chand, actually, I think the same question that I asked Dr. Subrahmanyam to you. Even the government is admitting that just having this, 3 indicators, people are deprived and therefore they're absolutely poor, is an inadequate definition, because the government has sanctioned free food of 5 kilos for 80 crore people, which is, 60% of the population. So even policy is accepting that this is not a very good measure of poverty, isn't it?
No, it is not like this. After NITI came with this, NITI and UNDP came with the full report, there was a debate in literature. There was one school of thought who just said, as Dr. Sen, Pronab Sen has mentioned. But on the other hand, there were people like Dr. Amitabh Kundu who said, no, this is the right approach to go for it. There's nothing wrong with this. But I would like to say is that what Dr. Pronab Sen is referring to is monetary poverty or income poverty. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that but for that poverty which is anchored to income is meant, you see, that poverty for sake of poverty. The ultimate goal of raising income of people and bringing them out of poverty is whether they are improving their household.
No, I agree with you on that. I agree, sir, I agree with you on that. What I'm saying is,
regarding 3 indicators which you are mentioning, you see, it is not like that. You always have to draw a line, like poverty line. It's not that people were not having any income. So there was some norm that say 10,000 rupee per month per family or whatever. Similarly, in this new approach, if weighted average of deprivation is more than 1/3.
yeah,
That is the definition, weighted average. Like nutrition may not get the entire 40% weight.
I agree.
Or 30% weight. It may get 1/6, 1/12, depending upon where it is figuring. So the multidimensional poverty line is if an household is still deprived of 1/3 of the weighted average of all these 12 indicators, only then it will be considered.
Poor.
If deprivation is less than 1/3, then it is not considered deprivation.
Okay.
So 1 means 100% deprivation, 0 means no deprivation. 33 is a cut-off line. That weighted average of multidimensional deprivation is something like 33.
No, I followed that. I mean, since I read thoroughly, and it is good that you have explained it for people who have not read the report. I take your point. I'm only saying that it's perhaps to celebrate that only 11.28% of a population of 142 crore people works out to only 15 crore poor people. But that seems an underestimation, a serious understatement of the number of people whom the government itself admits requires food. 5 kilos of food is being given to 80 crore people. But Dr. Subrahmanyam, another issue that people might point out, see, you're extrapolating from the 1920 number to 22-23. But in between was a very unnatural event, a once in a 100-year event like COVID, which the report itself points out. Dr. Chand is referring to it. So do you think this extrapolation is even fair? Probably more people were pushed down, and probably the pace of rise of people above the line is not 10% or 15%, which was the pace from 2015 to 2019. Would you say this extrapolation is a little unfair, Dr. Subrahmanyam?
Yeah, simple. If you see the data, the data for the NFHS 5 was actually spread over 2 years, 19 to 21. Normally it should be over 1 year. And it is precisely over 2 years because it was hit by COVID. Some of the data was pre-COVID, some of the data is post-COVID. A lot of the post-COVID data has been captured in the NFHS. And that's probably why it reflects in, some numbers being high, which is where it should be. I'll go back to another point which Dr. Pronab Sen said. These indicators, whether this or a per capita income just on a monetary indicator, I don't think these are all either or. All have to be taken as guides. And in terms of guidance for action, this is one of the best indicators,
Yes.
because you actually know what constitutes poverty as it is felt, not in terms of some number. So it's an impact indicator, and then you can direct government policy on each of these indicators, and I think that's what is showing results. Almost all the 12 indicators that are there have a specific government program targeted for that, and for which the government is going for a saturation approach. And that's why the government is confident that it will come down to single digits very soon.
Okay, fair point. I am not at all disputing that this is a more useful way of measuring poverty or other deprivation, because it's able to guide policy very effectively. I think Dr. Chand wanted to intervene. I saw you say something, sir. Go ahead, Dr. Chand.
I just wanted to say that you are equating poverty with undernutrition.
Okay.
You see, you can't do this. They are two different goals.
Okay.
There are a lot of studies which show that that hunger reduction does not necessarily follow poverty reduction.
Okay.
There are studies which show it is much easier to reduce poverty than to reduce undernutrition.
Okay.
So please do not consider
Confuse
them as
the two.
synonym. Undernutrition is one set of one variable which has figured in this multidimensional.
Fair point. I take your point, sir.
Not all.
I take your point, sir. I mean, we could find undernourished people in all categories, actually, even in higher levels of income. I have to take a very quick break. Please, gentlemen obliged, we are back in a jiffy with a few more questions. Welcome back. The NITI Aayog has put out an excellent report trying to measure the number of genuinely deprived people or poverty statistics in India. And it gives us a very welcome news that the number of poor people who have been lifted out of poverty is a huge 24 crore from 2015 to 2023. And that the probably people who can be described as absolutely poor now are as low as 11.28. I've been discussing the report with the author, Dr. Ramesh Chand, with the NITI Aayog CEO, Dr. BVR Subrahmanyam, and the former Chief Statistician of India, Dr. Pronab Sen. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. Dr. Sen, do you think that, more than poverty statistics, we have a poverty of statistics? I mean, should we not be reading these numbers along with more intensive labor data? If people had more jobs and more income, then many of these, they would fend for themselves. So perhaps that is a big missing link. We don't have very good labor data.
No, look, Lata, what Dr. Chand said is right. I mean, income doesn't necessarily translate into increases in specific kinds of assets. And there's another point at which I would like to correct you, which is, the multidimensional poverty index has one very peculiar characteristic, which is it is almost impossible for it to move backwards. It can only improve. It can't get worse. Right?
Okay.
And if you go over it, you'll realize why that is happening. Just look at the way you measure it. Now, because of that, it's a unidimensional measure. You can't talk about people moving out of poverty or moving back into poverty. Back into poverty cannot happen. So the only thing that becomes relevant when you use the multidimensional poverty index is what is the pace at which people are moving above poverty.
Okay.
And how deeply poor are they in the indices concerned. All right.
Yeah.
Now, this is an important characteristic of this particular measure, that you can't move backwards.
Yeah. Fair point.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah. Fair point.
However, if I remember the study rightly, it also said that there were a few districts in India where the index had moved backwards.
Okay.
To me, those are the interesting cases. I mean, it simply goes to what was happening there. Unless there is a calamity of some variety, this index just simply doesn't move backwards at all.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting, sir. I mean, that would be also a call for policy. Time permitting, I should ask Dr. Chand that. Dr. Chand, would you say that it would be better to read this data along with income and consumption? I mean, we have not had the consumption expenditure survey for years now. Do you think that is a gap? Of course, this is a very important index for policy making, but it should be read in conjunction with consumption survey, and NITI should, urge the government to speed that up.
Yeah, Lataji, you first mentioned about employment data. I want to start from there. Last 7 years, we have every year data available on employment, Y sector, all those kind of things. One can comment on quality of employment, but as far as unemployment rate is concerned, that data shows that in last 7 years, it has reduced to less than half. That is one finding from unemployment data. Secondly, based on the same data, Professor Golder has published an interesting paper which showed that we were always complaining that employment in manufacturing is not increasing, but employment in manufacturing, even in manufacturing, in the recent year is increasing every year by more than 3%. Okay. But still, the reason for high rate of, some people call it high, 3%, 3.5% as high, unemployment is that because of demographic transition, the labor force growth rate is as high as 4%, which is very, very rare. So because of that, you find that even if manufacturing gives 3% growth in employment, its share in employment goes down. But despite that, the growth in employment in agriculture has risen at such a fast rate that overall you find that in this country, the rate of unemployment over last 7 years has continuously declined. And that I find is quite consistent with what are the findings from this multidimensional poverty index. The second supporting index, you know that World Bank, based on income statistics from wherever they take it, they come out with some poverty estimate. They have come out for this estimate for India in 2021, according to World Bank PPP poverty line of $2.61. India's poverty percent of population under poverty has declined to 11.8%. So you see, if you consider that World Bank poverty is based on income data, you find that results are quite consistent.
Okay. Okay. No, I take your point on that, but World Bank is really going with a lot of extrapolation from our own data. I mean, they don't have any independent source. I take your point on unemployment, but really in India, the poor can't afford to be unemployed. They would take any job. So we cannot be perhaps satisfied that the numbers who are reporting themselves as unemployed have fallen by half, it's perhaps even a more desperate situation. Just final words from you, Dr. Subrahmanyam. My quarrel with this is, why should we extrapolate to 2013 and 2023? I mean, this almost looks like, therefore, it is a political document. Then it has to be tied to the coming of the new government and its second term in office. It was okay if we went with the NFHS data and looked at 2015-16 and 2020-21 and wait for the next NFHS. This gives it a political color, doesn't it?
It's certainly not a political document. It's an academic exercise.
Okay.
And two, data for NFHS 3, which is the MDPI, which is there, which is actual, is actually not calculated originally by NITI. NITI has actually come out with only 2 MDPI data points so far, which is NFHS 4 and 5. So this is an academic exercise in which they actually calculated backwards for 2005-6. And then even this interpolation and extrapolation has been done in a very academic way. It's not been done in a linear way, because that's not the way poverty actually moves. So they actually calculated in an exponential way, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
If you've done it linearly, this figure would have been actually closer to 30 crores. It's 29 odd crores. But no, it was not a political document. That's not the correct methodology. They modified the methodology, which is more acceptable in an academic sense, calculated it. And any government of the day would like to know what is the level of poverty at various points of time to take action. And so I think there's nothing wrong in picking up 2 particular years. And I don't feel in that sense.
Fair point, sir. Thank you very much. I'm not questioning at all. And in fact, the key takeaway from the document is extremely positive, that even if we are not satisfied that there should be so many poor people on so many, or deprived people on so many parameters, the fact that it has fallen substantially from 2005-6 to 2014-15 and then to 2023 is an extremely positive takeaway from this report. Thank you very much, Dr. Subrahmanyam, Dr. Chand and Dr. Sen, for reading the fine print and helping us understand this very important document. Wrap up on Indianomics. Thank you very much for watching.
and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're coming to you from the CII Lounge in Davos. Almost getting to the last lap here as we close things out. It's time for us to take stock of